Hi everyone, I hope you are all well. My name is Piper Kenny and I am here to show you my life map. So I chose to break down my life map into sort of one or two incidents or aspects per each stage in my life that brought me to where I am now, as well as that gave me the most significant learning. So I have early childhood, teenager, young adult, and then more recent. But to start, I do want to give credit to my biggest source of learning, which is my family. I asked my family to take selfies for this project, and they did not disappoint. This is my mom, Shelley, my dad, Robert, and my two brothers, Tate and Kai. So I was born on September 6th, 1990, but I was not alone. I was about 20 minutes after my brother Tate, and he is a really important person in my life. We have always been able to talk about absolutely everything. And he taught me a lot about trust and friendship, as well as how to not take things too seriously. So this is just a few cute pics of us as babies. While this certainly isn't just in my childhood, our relationship's still fine. Our relationship was really important to me during that time because we had each other's back and we helped each other through our early education. And I don't know if they do this now, but when we were kids, they used to separate twins into different classrooms. I have no idea why. But my mother would have none of that, and I'm really glad she was so vocal, as we both had learning difficulties. And having someone to study with and even to understand your frustrations was really, really helpful and really important in sort of that early education setting. I often call him my womb mate. So that's sort of an example of our relationship. Another aspect of my childhood was my family life. My parents have been separated since I was about 1 year old, but thanks to their determination, this has never been a negative part of my life. We have spent holidays and special events together when we were younger and even now. And even if my parents had different partners, we would always continue on with that. And they've both told me that they were adamant that their separation did not affect us kids' relationship to either parent. And actually, oddly enough, now my parents are now living together under the same roof as my mom is now, or sorry, my dad is now my mom's tenant in her basement suite. So that's really funny. And this has taught me just a lot of how to compromise and how to be gracious with someone you may not get along with. Also, really more importantly, is forgiveness and how the struggles that we face with other people, forgiveness can really be a saving grace and really add another layer that's to your life that's really good, and certainly added another layer to my life that was really beautiful and really understanding, I would say. So this is an odd one, but to quote a very good show, hair is everything. So when I was young, I had long hair all the time. I was always sort of long hippie child. But due to a particularly bad case of head lice, my hair had to be cut really short, which is the picture here. And it was initially pretty crushing. However, it sort of started this thought in my head that appearance wasn't everything and that change isn't always bad. So you may have noticed that I am not a teenager in this part, in this picture, as this is where I'm, or the aspect or the part of my life that I'm talking about. But it definitely, the attitude maybe started younger, but it definitely sort of cemented itself in my teenage years, which of course we all know that those are our formative years of self-identification. So I wasn't so much of a shy teenager, but I also wasn't outgoing either. And my high school, like KPU, has a lot of hands-on programs, and I participated in the aesthetics and hair design, which means I graduated from high school with a certificate in aesthetics and hair design. And this opened up a lot of creative doors for me, but also the know-how and sort of being comfortable with the ability to express that in my appearance, which I am really thankful for. Hair also taught me that things change and that if you don't like it, change it again. And that the power of change is in the knowledge of how to do so. And that it can also be fun, that I could sort of let go of what I thought I looked like or what I thought my image was, and that my attitude was actually far more valuable than my appearance. And since then, I have also never gotten a trim. And I've volunteered for a bunch of sort of hairstylist portfolios and seminars and conferences. So it's also was just a really fun part of my life and has been part of my life. This picture right here, I don't know if you can see the one in the bottom right. About 2 weeks after that, I completely shaved my head because I wanted to. So that's a real prime example of changes. Like I did like it, but it changes sort of part of life, and that to be comfortable with it is, I think, for me, was a really important lesson, and helped me sort of weather a lot of other things. So another tool for self-expression in particular, I learned was actually through dance. And this also wasn't exclusively as a teenager, as I started dance when I was about 6. But as an awkward teenager, I am thankful for it. It made me aware of my body in a really positive way, especially when you're going through a really self-conscious stage in your life. And that I could also, I could focus on what I was capable of rather than my self-image. So dance was a really big part of my high school years, as even just as an activity of self-expression was really important. So the fall after I graduated from high school, and I sort of put this as a young adult, but I'm not just out of high school. I don't know if I would call a young adult, but I participated in Kitiavik, which was a youth program started by Pierre Elliott Trudeau in the 1970s. And it was a 9-month volunteering program in 3 small communities in Canada. There was so many aspects of this adventure that gave me life skills. So things like cooking and organizing events and leading workshops and a lot more that I'm forever grateful. And we were also a group of 10 youths, and then we had a leader we met up with a leader everywhere I traveled. So it also taught me a lot of interpersonal skills and sort of how to get along in close quarters, which I find really valuable. So the group I volunteered with, we traveled to Trail, BC, High Prairie, Alberta, and Montjoly, Quebec. The place I probably learned the most from was High Prairie, Alberta. A lot of my experiences were very much outside my comfort zone. It was -40 for most of the time that we were there. We also had to move house because of some serious mold issues and like health issues. I also worked in a high school with people with learning and cognitive challenges. And then the town was also surrounded by 6 First Nations reserves and 2 Métis reserves. So this was also a really important cultural learning experience for me. And I could also do a whole sort of presentation on my experience here, but in short, it really shaped my attitudes towards community and other people for the better. We got to hear experiences from the sort of separation and the reservation schools that happened, and it was really deeply moving in the sense of learning what the experiences of others are, and it taught me to really appreciate and be thankful for what I have. So yeah, that was. So more recently, last spring, in fact, I did an internship for my degree with the University of Sancti Spiritus, Cuba. While the photos that I took make it seem like it was a really great trip, and there were certainly lots of great moments, it was probably one of the most deeply disappointing and frustrating and testing experiences of my life. And I actually still find it difficult to speak about it, which you'll notice that I only have one slide of this because of that. But what I learned from that trip is that it's sort of the depth and breadth, sort of where my patience ends, and where my personal boundaries are. I learned a lot about myself in terms of my personal expectations and what I am capable of weathering, what I am how far my positive attitude will take me. And it certainly only took me so far. It also doesn't help that I have an extremely sensitive stomach. I have quite a few stomach issues, and I was also sick for the majority of my 3.5 months there. However, I also learned a lot of humility from the Cuban people, particularly from the family we stayed with. In Cuba, they have very little resources, including food and money, and that makes them very innovative, and they're very resourceful, and they're very inventive, and they're very gracious people, albeit their understanding of feminism is about 50 years behind. So that was another frustrating piece, but the Cuban people are probably the best example I have seen of sort of lemons to lemonade, making the best out of a tough scenario. So that was a really good lesson in humility and also being thankful for what I have. So thank you everyone for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed.